I thought I'd do a jogging video, like the golf video. Why not? I'm outside, and maybe I'll think of something brilliant to say. So I'm going to go for a run down that way, and so when I'm done, I will see if I have something to say. Well, I was out for a run, so I figured I would make a video outside since I was out here, and have to do this cooling down thing anyway. So it gives you time to think, reflective, all that kind of crap. So I thought I'd do a response video to Nick, sort of on the subject of, you know, this, the psychology of this perpetuation of the game. You know, why did the rats in the maze keep perpetuating their circumstance? I mean, we're living in pretty much chaos. We've been doing it for centuries, you know, thousands of years, and you know, we just keep doing it. Human beings keep reproducing in excess of their current population. It's like they won't even grant the minimum of pause, of, you know, not doing that recklessly or not doing that for mere convenience, but, you know, instead it's just like it's part of the fabric of life, and it doesn't have to be, of course. And we really should, you know, I tend to say we should strive for perfection, but we should strive for better than completely fucked up. And it's never been stable. I mean, you can look at history, and, you know, you're lucky if you can go 40 or 50 years without there being some sort of major catastrophe. And so this blight of the chaos has been around a long time, and it's irritating that human beings just can't seem to get the, wait a minute, why would I perpetuate this until we know what we're doing, until we've got this figured out, till we can guarantee the welfare of the next generation. I was making this argument in Stickham last night, and I sort of put it to people, I phrased it in the sense that if you had a son or a daughter, you wouldn't take risks overtly or on purpose with their welfare. I mean, you wouldn't roll dice with their welfare. You would demand something better than that. You know, that's just not good enough to roll dice with somebody else's welfare, somebody you care about. It's not acceptable. It should bother people. But because the status quo pop culture says this is okay, this is the right thing to do, have kids, be fruitful, multiply, do this bullshit game, perpetuate the madness, everybody just sort of just jumps on that bandwagon, so to speak, and plays that tune. And it's never, I mean, I never spent any real conscious time contemplating realistically the prospect of doing that. Not only because I didn't have any innate desire to have kids, but I always had a great fear about that incredible responsibility. Like, you're going to be responsible now. You're going to have to take care of the problems. You're going to have to make it all right. And you can't do that in the world we live in. You know, nature is still unyielding. It imposes all kinds of harsh cruelties, and our civilization is so far from fair or certain in how it's going to treat people and what it's going to end up doing to them, what kind of circumstance it's going to impose. So it just seems so reckless, so it's more than just optimism. It's callous, in my opinion. Not to appreciate risk is, in my opinion, callous. Because it's obvious. The risk is obvious. It's not complex. You don't have to think very hard to think about all the things that could have gone wrong in your own life. How many times was there a circumstance where you came that close to a fucking disaster? And what if that was somebody you cared about and the disaster did happen? You didn't luck out. So I just don't get it just on a personal level. And then anybody who's going to call themselves a philosopher who hasn't contemplated the the fact that we have this completely subjective, conditioned, desirous psychology that compels participation in the game. I mean, the only way this game makes any sense is you have to be conditioned to it. You have to be made to play the game. Your psychology has to be toned to find satisfaction in it. Our victories are shallow and superficial. It's so easy to imagine a superior alien race looking down at us and just saying, how silly are they? I mean, look at what they impose on themselves. It's almost analogous to, let's say you're a slave and you have the capacity not to have children, and yet you choose to have them, even though you know your children will live in your slavery, will live in the mediocrity that you exist in, or the horror you exist in. And that's the real point, is that the scales with which we compare things, we keep using the excuse of, well, it's not smallpox, or it's not polio, or it's not the Holocaust. We always compare everything to some greater awful horror and say, therefore, since it's not that horror, it's a lesser horror, therefore it's a good thing. And we don't compare it to perfection, because somehow perfection, or a more perfect world, is off the radar. It's off the reasonable expectation scope, and therefore we don't have any obligation to compare this shit to something better. We're always going to justify it by comparing it to something worse. And it's such an intellectually dishonest way of approaching the question. But it is the standard operating procedure. It's the way everybody finds a way to make this glass half full when this glass might be bone dry. We don't even know how miserable our existence is by any kind of purely objective standard, one that isn't caught up in it, that isn't full of desire for the cheese that's in the refrigerator, so they must walk to the kitchen and open the door to get the cheese. We must walk into the next day, into the future, to get what we're hoping is in our refrigerator. But it's all living on hope. It's all living on the expectation that somehow you're not going to win all the booby prizes that are just waiting out there. There's millions of little human, tiger traps sitting out there, little pits with little spikes in the bottom of them for you to fall into. And because you have the grace to get through some years of life, you think you're immune still, but you're not. Any minute you could be the victim. I mean, this is not something a civilized consciousness should not be satisfied with this equation. It should demand that we do better than this, that we slow down, that we stop, and that we consider what we are propelling into the future, what circumstance we are putting consciousness in. Because we're doing it. We're creating tomorrow's victims right now by our inability to temper people's desire and temper their selfishness. I mean, because nobody's obliging people to defend the jeopardy they're putting the future in. Everybody's just allowed to keep doing it. We're allowed to deficit spend, and we're allowed to keep having children in a society that we haven't structured to be stable. It's lived on growth, and growth can't be sustained into the future. We have to learn how to be self-sufficient. Until we learn that, we have no business mindlessly marching into that future. So anyway, it's a tough subject, and I guess there's only going to be 0.0002% of the population that are going to get it. But what human beings are doing is so irresponsible, and it's a crime. It's just a crime to impose risk. If you can't guarantee something or create a high probability of an outcome, I don't see how you justify that. It's no better than drunk driving. We're drunk driving. The human race is drunk driving, and there's no other way to look at it. It's playing games with the future, and it's criminal. That's it. You know, they need to get arrested and thrown in the cooler, and taught a lesson that you can't do this shit, that it's not acceptable. Human psychology has to be a little better than this, and certainly human philosophy has to do a hell of a lot better than God says it's okay, because it's just not a good enough answer for a 21st century human. Alright, that sounds like enough. So, thank you very much. Till next time. Sorry, a lot of noise, wind, and it's kind of cold now, and the stream and everything. So maybe you can't even hear this video. So, sorry.